Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to my channel. My name is David, and today I'm going to do the Atwood Adventure Tag, which was an original tag by my friend Jolene at Bookworm Adventure Girl, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's dive right on in. Question 1. Before publishing her first collection of poetry in the early 60s, Margaret Atwood had several other jobs, including working at summer camps. What was your first job? And my first job was working 2 summers at an amusement park called Adventureland here in Iowa. I worked primarily in the retail stands and the shops, and it was a fine first job. Question 2. While growing up, Margaret Atwood's family spent several months each year living in the bush in northern Ontario. What is a survival skill that you have that would help you survive living off the grid? And I don't think I have really much of a practical one. Probably something I should work on, getting some sort of a survival skill. Unless you want to consider the ability to just be confined in isolation and just read book after book after book. If I had that opportunity and the quiet and the peace to not have any concerns other than basic needs and just hunker down and read, I would be delighted to just find a library and just go and live in there for, a couple years, decades, whatever. And in a pinch, I'd have plenty of kindling for fire to keep myself warm in that scenario. Question 3. Margaret Atwood grew up reading comic books. Do you have a favorite comic book or comic book character? Yes. I grew up watching the X-Men animated cartoon back in the 90s. So X-Men have always had a kind of a soft spot in my heart. I was never really big on reading comics themselves growing up, and I'm working on that now and find that I'm enjoying it, but it's a very slow process. And my favorite comic book character from X-Men at this point in time is Kitty Pryde, also known as Shadowcat, who is just a fantastic character. And I'm slowly starting to work my way through every comic that she's featured in. Question 4. Margaret Atwood is not only a poet and author, she has also illustrated books and shown her creativity in so many other ways. What are some ways that you are creative? And the easy answer to that is in writing. I'm an author, published author, not with any major publication, and most recently self-published with my first novel, Monster Huntress, as well as an anthology of short stories, Merchant in Orient and Other Tales, both of which are available, and I'll have linked down below so you can purchase a copy for yourself. They are both available in ebook and physical paperback book now, so if you're interested, I would love to hear your thoughts as you read through either of them. Question 5. Some of Margaret Atwood's writing is inspired by myths, folktales, and fairy tales. What is your favorite myth, folktale, or fairy tale, and why? And the maybe not so definitive answer would be King Arthur, if you consider King Arthur to be a myth, folktale, or fairy tale. In that entire corpus, I would have a hard time picking just one. Probably Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, that particular tale being the pinnacle of Arthurian tales. But if you want something other than King Arthur, I would tell you that the Norse mythology as a whole, found in both the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, are phenomenal. Really enjoyable reads. Some really fun and humorous tales in there. And I've been reading Norse mythology. I've got an illustrated Norse mythology book for kids that I've been reading with my 5-year-old. We read a little bit each night, and most recently we read a tale about Loki and him tricking the dwarves. And then we read a story about Odin and how he lost his eye in his thirst for knowledge. And it's just been really enjoyable. I figured he'd be interested because of Thor and Loki, and he absolutely has been. And so it's been enjoyable. Question 6. Margaret Atwood's most well-known novel is The Handmaid's Tale. What is a task or chore you wish you had a maid or servant for? I'm not sure I have a good answer on this one because the tasks and chores I do primarily to help out around the house are the ones that my wife just doesn't enjoy doing. And so I'm happy to do those to help her out, being primarily doing the dishes. So I guess maybe I'd pick that so that then neither of us would have to do those, but I'd probably instead pick that maid or servant for whatever she happened to need, keeping up with laundry and all of that. Question 7. The themes Margaret Atwood writes about have stayed consistent in all her writing for over 6 decades. She writes about the role of men and women in society, relationships, religion, marriage, and identity, to name a few. If Atwood were to write a novel about you, what are some themes that she would need to include? And that's an interesting question. Uh, Relationship certainly would be in there. Religion, the absence thereof for a big portion of my life, and then the change almost 10 years ago now that came when I did find Christianity and a belief in God and how that's shaped me and how a lot of the trials and tribulations that we've gone through, especially in the past 3 years, have shaped us into who we are. The fellowship that we have with other Christian friends has been just really, really good and strengthening in our both friendships with other people as well as just our growing closer together as a couple and as parents, and then just walking through the trials that come to life, parenthood, and the ordeal that we went through almost 3 years ago with our daughter, who spent most of the first 6 months of her life in the hospital in some way, shape, or form in their care, and how that shook us up and challenged us and made us have to grow as individuals and grow in how we perceived our future. Even just this evening, we were realizing that this summer is going to become our 10-year wedding anniversary, and started thinking, initial brainstorming of what we should try to do, where we should try to go, and the thought, unfortunately, is that we can't be very far. We certainly can't go anywhere international because we couldn't afford to be stranded somewhere and not be able to get back to help take care of our daughter, who still has a lot of needs and needs a lot of care. And so we're looking at a very short span of time to be able to go away, but hopefully to go see the ocean, which is something my wife's always wanted to do. Sorry for the side tangent there. Guess that's what you get when it's late at night. You know how I like to just talk. Question 8. Margaret Atwood has created words for her novels. She has talked about how this makes it difficult for translators of her work. Do you have a favorite word, and why is it your favorite? No, I don't really have a favorite word. I have a favorite category of words, and those come from the Old English written by the Anglo-Saxons. And those would be kennings, where you have kind of the smashing together of two words for a great poetic effect, such as word hoard and whale road and things of that nature, to where you are just creating some kind of a image by putting words that maybe don't necessarily belong together, but it paints a picture. Whale road being an ocean, a wonderful way, a creative way to describe that. Question 9. Margaret Atwood was born in Canada and lives in Canada now, but she has also lived in other countries like the United States, England, France, Germany, and Scotland. What countries have you lived in, and or what is another country you would like to live in? I've only lived in the United States. I've briefly, when I was very young, crossed into Mexico, and briefly, when I was still pretty young, crossed over to Canada, and that's been the extent of my international travel. I would love to someday go to Iceland. I think my wife's against wanting to ever live in Iceland. I think we both agree that we'd love to go to somewhere like Norway or Sweden and go live somewhere up there. I think that would be a really cool place. And of course, I would love to go to England and walk the ground where Tolkien lived and where he gathered with the other Inklings and things like that. Question 10. Margaret Atwood is an advocate for caring for the earth. What is something you do to help take care of our planet? We recycle a fair amount. Beyond that, I don't know that it gets nearly as much attention as some other people put into it. We do. My wife tries to grow a lot of her own food. We're raising chickens to get our own eggs, so I mean we're kind of cutting some of the supply chain out. To she would love to go to where we're just self-sustained at some point, but we don't have nearly enough of a yard for that. But that is her dream someday to get a plot of land to where we could just take care of that and become self-sufficient on what we need for food. Question 11. Margaret Atwood is passionate about animal rights, and some of her writing has included animals and reflection on animals. What is a topic you are passionate about? Besides books and board games, which are the two obvious ones. We've actually become, my wife and I both, her more so than me, because she has to live it constantly, but become a lot more passionate about advocating for the rights of disability because of our daughter and all of the little things, the things that I wouldn't have thought about 3 years ago of just little design issues and flaws on making things less accessible. We want to build a ramp for getting into our house and out of our house at some point in time. I mean, she's still small enough that she can be carried, but at some point in time, that's not going to be as easy to do. And so we'll need to have that in our long-term plans of getting better accessibility. We've gone to buildings, locations where they don't have any sort of an elevator, so you have to go flights of stairs, and trying to do that with a stroller is not the easiest thing in the world, especially when you've got a kid that can't really get up and walk, and we've got a oxygen tank and all of her other medical needs, and trying to lug all that up and down the stairs is just not fun. So that can dictate some of where we choose to go at times and what we're able to do. Question 12. Margaret Atwood is supportive of new authors in a variety of ways. Who is a newer author, and or what debut novel do you wish more people knew about? And here's where I want to give a shout out to two authors that I know on BookTube that all of you should go and check out their stuff. Jeremy Fee just published a collection of poetry, Eclectic Nightmares, and you should definitely check it out. I've got a copy that I just started reading tonight and am absolutely enjoying it so far. You better believe it'll be featured this Thursday for Poetry Thursday. I'll be reading something out of it. And, so check his out. His collection is great. And then you should also check out Margaret Pinard, who is a fantastic author-tuber, booktuber. Most people probably already know her. She's got, I think, 5 different novels out there, including a trilogy that's complete, that is very, very highly regarded by those that have read it. So you should absolutely go and check her works out. And then I'm going to give a shout out to one of my old indie author friends, Allison Recker, who writes under Allison D. Reed. And her first book was, I believe, Journey to Aviad. And it's a Christian fantasy. And so she's got a lot of books continuing that series. So I'll have that link down below so you can check that out if you're interested at all. And then question 13, tag some of your favorite booktubers. Uh, I'm not going to tag a whole bunch of people here. I'm going to tag a couple down in the comments. Probably I'll have in the description a few more names as I think of them. But I do want to tag first and foremost a couple of small channels. Pax Panic. If you don't know Pax Panic, she's delightful. Mostly horror too, but she does some fantasy reads as well. And she's just so much fun, has such great energy, and just an outstanding channel. And I would love to hear her answer on a lot of these. Justin from This Justin, I would like to tag him. I know he's kind of slowly creeping back into doing stuff again on BookTube, and I'm happy to see him back, and would love to hear his answers on these. And then the Dastardly Criminale, I'm going to go ahead and tag him, which most of you probably already follow him as well. But yeah, I'd like to hear Criminale's answers on some of these, as he's celebrating hitting 500 subscribers in such a really great short amount of time. Fantastic seeing his success, because he's got great content and is the reason why several of us are reading 100 books before we'll buy another book. And it's a great way to make sure that we're getting through our collection a little bit, and I'm enjoying that process. So that is all we have tonight, or today. It's tonight when I'm filming. Today, maybe when you see it, maybe it'll be a night. But anyway, before I get too much more on my rambly tangents, I'll just say bye. Have a great rest of your day, BookTube.